Hello and welcome to episode 5 of our web marketing series. I cannot think of a more boring introduction screen than just a window full of code. I apologize for that, but I do promise you this. The topic of today is so damn important. It is conversion tracking, knowing who your users are and knowing when somebody purchases on your site, where they came from, why they purchased, how long it took them, etc. I will be as upfront as you can. I am an engineer. I'm not a marketing guy. I'm trying to become a marketer somewhat in this video series, but I just simply have never cared about tracking. In fact, I don't even like the idea of tracking. But I'll tell you right now, if you're a business, you have got to know about your users. You've got to track your users. You've got to find out where they came from, because if you don't, you are going to die as a business. And so that's what I tell myself whenever I do this, because again, I still don't really like tracking, but you have to do it. So this video will be very important and very key if you're trying to set up a tracking system as well. So let's get started. As we started in the last video, we started working on our Google Analytics tracking. In this video, we're actually going to layer on top of that with tracking for Google AdWords, which is also incredibly important, right? Somebody clicks on your ad, they purchase a week, 2 weeks later, a month later. We want to know that you got that user because of that ad. What's your return on investment? In other words, what's your ROI? Are you paying money for users that are actually buying products, or are you just throwing money away? Okay, so before we get to that though, implementing AdWords tracking, we are going to we're going to finish up, I should say, our Google Analytics tracking. So something sad actually happened yesterday, or I should say this morning. I got a sale, which was awesome. That hasn't happened for a while, but the transaction didn't go through in Google Analytics, right? I went to Analytics, I checked the e-commerce tab, and it was just flat. So really sad about that. So I immediately went into debug mode and tried to figure out what the problem was. And so we're going to get a little bit technical for a second. I'm going to talk about what I've done to fix that problem. So when I have a problem like that, in other words, I'm implementing a system that I've never implemented before or I'm not very familiar with, if I run into a problem, and indeed even before I try to release something, unfortunately I didn't do it in this case, but even before I release something, I will test, and I will almost always restart the entire process. In other words, I'll start from the beginning and work up from there. And so I didn't have any conversion tracking information, so the first thing I did is I went to the admin tab in Analytics. I went to the website that I want to track, I went to view, and then I went to e-commerce settings, and I just made sure that enable e-commerce was turned on. Simple, I know, but I did it anyway. Okay, it was turned on. Again, wasn't a surprise, but just wanted to check. Then I went to conversions, e-commerce overview, and again, I have some data here now because yay, we fixed it, but at the time I didn't. It was just a flat line. Now here's the thing. There is a bit of a delay, and by a bit I mean about an hour or so, of e-commerce data. The problem that I had is that I checked this at around 1 o'clock our time, and the sale happened around 10 o'clock. So I wasn't willing to believe that there was like a 3-hour delay between getting that data in. So I assumed there was a problem, but I just had no idea where to look. So what I decided to do was, because I now know the system and I know that essentially this is all we're literally doing is just sending this customized tracking tag, I decided to focus on that. However, before I really looked at the details, I wanted to make double sure that the tracking tag was actually being sent off. And the easiest way to check that is to load up Chrome and then download the extension called Google Tag Assistant. And what Google Tag Assistant will do is this will actually give you a view, let me back up here, of whenever you load a page, what tags are being run. So in other words, you enable it, you refresh your page, and then go through your checkout process. And then when you hit your confirmation page, it'll show you, here's all the information that was sent off and here's where the tracking took place. Now in this particular case then, here is the demo server, I should say the development server that I run, running locally. I've gone to my checkout page, I've completed the process, and we're now on the confirmation page. And as we can see now, I have two broad categories of tracking that took place. So I have AdWords conversion tracking, and then I had Google Analytics. Now again, we're going to talk about this shortly, but for now, let's bump into Google Analytics. And here you can see I have two classes of items that happen. The first is a standard page view request. This is just tracking users as we essentially always would. And then the other one is the key. For other requests, we had two hit types. We had an item hit type and a transaction hit type. And sure enough, if we look at the actual code that we're setting off, here's a transaction, and here's an item. So I at least know at very minimum that we don't have some weird connectivity issue or a broken script tag. We're sending this information off. And to that end, I actually do want to say one really quick thing, which is that I had a bit of a boo-boo in my Google Analytics tags. For some reason, in my GA create statement here, I had it set to this right here, rackforms.com. I don't know why I had that. I don't know if it was literally given to me that way by Google at some point. Maybe it was, but to that theme of when something's not working, literally start as far back as you could. What I basically did is I said, well, what if this tag isn't right? What if some little bit has changed in here and I just don't see it? It'd be easy to happen. So again, I stepped back, I went to the admin tab, I went to my tracking info, tracking code, and I just recopy and pasted it into my page. Just don't worry about it. Don't worry about me trying to analyze it. Just start basic. Why would this be wrong? I have no idea. In my case, it absolutely was. But, start basic. Do the things that you wouldn't think to do usually. And in my case, just copy and paste afresh. So that may have been the original problem. I don't know. The other thing, though, very quickly that I started eyeballing for a little while was maybe I had an error in this actual code that I was sending. So maybe I was sending, like, for revenue, a string value as opposed to a currency value. Maybe for ID, I was sending an improper value. And basically, what I did here was I ran a couple different transactions. And from doing that, I saw kind of behind the scenes, not really, but like I saw how Google reports this data. And by that, I simply mean that I found that if I have a unique ID right here, and then we go into goals, e-commerce, transactions, all of these values right here actually are what start right here. So what I started to do then was running individual tests. Because again, there is a delay. There's about an hour delay between when you submit an e-commerce transaction and when it appears, on average, I found. So therefore, I just did a whole bunch of tests. So for example, you can see this 111 right here. I went through, I set, here's 1112. I basically set some information up as my tag. I went through the checkout process. I submitted this tag through, and then I could see now what the result of that tag was. And I found some interesting things. So for example, you could see this transaction with the ID of 1112, so this guy right here. Notice that there's something off right here. I had a transaction. It shows the dollar amount, but notice it doesn't have a quantity. It just shows 0. Honestly, I really don't care about tracking quantities. You can only ever buy one item at a time in my store, but it's clear why that happened now. So this ID is different from this ID, so therefore it couldn't relate an item to my transaction, and therefore it didn't show up at all. So there you go. So making sure then that your ID here and your ID here is the same is going to be important. The other thing that I actually changed, and you'll actually probably have noticed this if you really copied verbatim from the previous video, was that I actually had 2 additional items. I actually had shipping and tax under my transaction item, but they're both set to 0. Now here's the thing. We take out tax, PayPal takes out tax automatically for me, and we don't ship. So I really don't care about those 2 values. In Google, like when I do taxes, I'm getting it through PayPal anyway. So I really don't care about specific values. I just care about the overall flow of, who's clicking on ads and who's purchasing. And so I just removed those 2 values. They weren't required. I was setting them to 0. Maybe that was breaking something. I don't know. But I just figure remove them just in case. And so as we can see now, I'm actually getting e-commerce data that's coming through the system. So I'm going to say for right now, I probably have this good. I'm going to push all this new stuff up after a couple more tests, and hopefully we're good. Now, that said, though, there was one other piece of tracking information that we want to capture, and this one is actually quite new to me. It is tracking in Google AdWords. So this one is actually pretty easy to set up. So basically, we go into AdWords, and we go under Tools, and then Conversion Actions. And then actually here, I'll just show you this. So if we go to conversions, we'll have different actions that we can set up. I set up an action like years ago where I created an action called sale. So every time I have a sale, I want, every time there's a new sale, I want to know about it. That's going to be my action. So what I basically did is I created that tag. And then when I click into this right here, then it will give me the information that I need to copy and paste into the source code of my page. So same as we did in the previous one where we got some code that we need to put in our page, we're doing the exact same thing right here. So if we scroll down right here, I literally just took this code and I copy and pasted it into my page. There is, as you would expect, some transaction-specific values though. So when you click that, you're actually going to get this little bit of descriptive text right here. It says, by the way, you're going to want to change your conversion value to whatever value you're actually set. So if we actually look at the source code of the page, you can see here that I'm echoing out the price dynamically. And there's also a price that is, whoops, that should not be that way. Value equals. Yeah, I thought that looked a little bit strange. Value equals price and amp currency equals. Okay, yeah. So this then, and like I say, this is why we test things. I actually missed that before. I was missing an equal right there. So, but with those two changes though, now this should be hopefully good. I kind of read through all this code. We don't need to go through it together, but basically it just says, copy and paste this into your page and then test to make sure it went through. So that's what I do right now is test this, but that, as far as I know, should be all that's required to make it so that this conversion action gets recorded in AdWords. So we will revisit that in the next episode to see just exactly what I've screwed up with that process, and if I have screwed something up, how we fix it. Or, provided I don't have any boo-boos in this one, the next video is going to be our first one where we hopefully start talking about optimizing our AdWords campaign. I've been getting a lot of data in, and I super duper want to talk about it because I've got a ton of ideas and things to try. But again, I want to share everything with you guys so we can see what works and what doesn't. But for now, not to be repetitive, but the further I was getting along in this process, and especially with that sale this morning, I was like, I have no idea where this person came from. And I'm not going to bug them and ask them. But I would love to have known if that person had actually clicked on an ad or if they found me by organic search. Like, I have no idea who they were. And it's my fault because I didn't get my conversion tracking set up in time. So do not wait. Get it set up. Those insights are going to be absolutely valuable to know where I should be spending my money on getting this business back up and running and kicking ass again. So we'll see you in the next episode.